Welcome to this explainer. Look, if you're a busy project manager, a scrum master, or an executive trying to rapidly elevate your team's performance, you are in the exact right place. Today, we're mastering the absolute game changer that is situational leadership. Let's kick things off with a hard truth. Are you secretly trapped in the default micromanagement cycle? We've all been there, right? Projects stall out, your own to-do list is literally overflowing, and team burnout is just through the roof. And why does this happen? Well, it's mostly because we default to micromanaging every single problem that lands on our desk.
So to break that vicious cycle, we really need to look at a stark contrast. On one hand, we've got coaching. This is where you ask powerful questions to build long-term capability in your people. And on the flip side, there's directing, giving explicit step-by-step instructions to just solve an immediate problem right now. The key here, these are not opposing forces. They're complementary tools.
Section 1. The Directing Directive.
Directing gets a really unfair, bad rap in a lot of modern leadership advice. People act like it's a dirty word, but there are times when it's not just an option, it's absolutely mandatory. Think about high-stakes emergencies requiring immediate action. You don't sit down and ask your team how they feel about a blazing fire, right? You tell them exactly what to do. The same rule applies for non-negotiable regulatory deadlines or when you're onboarding completely inexperienced team members. Those enthusiastic beginners, they literally crave clear structure.
And get this, a longitudinal study by Lorenkova, Pearsall, and Sims actually found that during the initial role compilation phase, that early stage of team building, directed teams actually outperformed empowered ones. No way, right? But it makes sense because the leader acts as an explicit coordination mechanism. You're removing the ambiguity so the team can focus entirely on just executing the work.
But here is the massive catch. You absolutely cannot stay in that mode. The risk of overusing the directing style is severe. If you rely on it permanently, you completely stunt your team's growth. They develop zero autonomy, their capacity to learn just shrinks, and it inevitably drives severe burnout. It's a short-term fix, not a long-term strategy.
Section 2. The Coaching Catalyst.
So what exactly happens when that emergency fades and your folks start gaining some actual skills? Well, you have to transition. Coaching becomes your true catalyst for growth. This is what you use when you're upskilling high-potential employees or resolving low-risk procedural roadblocks. When there are multiple valid solutions, step back. By asking questions instead of giving answers, you're fostering that long-term, independent critical thinking that your team desperately needs to scale.
Now, making this transition can be incredibly simple if you use the right framework. Enter the GROW model: goal, reality, options, and will. It's essentially a highly practical mental map for having an effective coaching conversation, keeping you from accidentally slipping back into boss mode and giving orders.
Here's exactly how to use this in your next one-on-one. Instead of just handing over the answer, try using some powerful open-ended questions. To figure out the reality, ask, what is happening right now? To explore options, ask, what options have you considered to overcome this? And crucially, to establish will, ask, what will you do about it going forward? See what happened there? You're prompting self-discovery, and that builds massive confidence.
Section 3. The Skill-Will Matrix.
Okay, but how do you instantly know which style an employee needs on any given Tuesday? You use this matrix to map their development level against your leadership style. Let's say you have an enthusiastic beginner, someone with low confidence but high commitment. For them, you use S1, directing. But if they hit a wall and become a disillusioned learner, you shift to S2, coaching. As they grow into a capable performer with moderate to high competence, you back off and use S3, supporting. And finally, for your self-reliant achievers, you step back entirely into S4, delegating.
You do have to watch out for some common application mistakes here, though. The absolute biggest pitfall? Misdiagnosing your team member's development level. Treating a seasoned expert like a total beginner is a surefire way to ruin their day. Or worse, just defaulting to your own preferred, comfortable leadership style, completely ignoring what your follower actually needs to grow. You have to adjust as they develop.
Section 4. Adapt fluidly to win.
That brings us to our core thesis for today. Effective leadership is a dynamic, constantly shifting choice. It's not just a static personality trait you're born with. Great leaders simply do not pick one single style permanently. Instead, they adapt fluidly, like a chameleon, to the situational needs and the specific maturity level of their followers. So, I want to leave you with a provocative question to chew on before your workday tomorrow. In your very next one-on-one meeting, Are you going to default to directing just to solve the immediate problem? Or will you step back and coach to actually build the person? The choice is entirely yours. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.